Hello everyone, and welcome back to devlog number 3 of My Life as a Robot Vacuum. At least I think that's the title I'm going to go with. It'll probably fit. It's not the best title, but it's not the worst. It fits what I'm going for, at least. Anyway, I know it's been a while, but I have actually done quite a bit of work. Unfortunately, some of it off recording because I just wasn't thinking and was excited to do something, but let me show you what I've done since the last time. So first, as you can see, I decided to finally bite the bullet and attempt to model a character. I did this the wrong way. Well, okay, I shouldn't say the wrong way, but not the way that most people would tell you to do it. What you're usually probably told is to start with some kind of like box for like the chest or maybe a sphere for the head and then just kind of work out. Yeah, I didn't do that. Back when I was in college, I tried to do that and it's very difficult. So I had a genius idea of taking a plane and cutting out half of a person, like a cross-section, and then mirroring that, joining the two halves, and then solidifying it. It kinda worked, and to be fair, with a bunch of, like, if I went in and added a bunch of vertices everywhere, it could work, but the problem right now, it's really difficult to work with from like a modeling perspective, and that will extend into rigging and animations should I decide to do those. For example, I cannot easily just loop cut around the arm to add more edges and vertices to like an elbow if I was trying to bend it, and the way I finished, I kind of didn't actually finish, so the character's like this weird flat thing. The reason I didn't go with starting with a cube though is because I was kind of worried it would just look like a Minecraft character if I didn't do it well enough. But overall, I'm honestly not like happy with the way this turned out, so I'm gonna redo it. I am probably just gonna try my best to make it not Minecraft looking cube man. So really the only time you'll see this model is here. I'm probably not even gonna import it into the Unity file because I don't need it. Now, on to the stuff that I am kind of proud to show off, or proud to show off that I actually have the recording for. First off, I tried to add the randomized location of the splatters, as well as adding in the ability for it to spawn multiple at one time and pick from the 3 different ones that I had. The multiple and picking from the 3 were really simple. It was just making a random number between X and Y. I incorrectly made it like 0 to 50 at first, which would sometimes spawn like 4 of them, and it looked really stupid. But eventually I raised it to like 30 and 70 or something, I don't know. But it made it look more natural, and to make it where it picked from the 3 different ones, I just made an array and a second random number that would randomly pick 1 to 3 and then select the corresponding splatter with that number. So those 2 things worked great. The problem I ran into was the random location of the splatter itself, and it wasn't noticeable until I tried to spawn like 30 of them at once, and they were all layered on top of each other. I eventually realized that the reason why that happened was, while I did initialize a variable that would store a random vector 3, like X and Z position or whatever, I never actually used it. All I did was tell it to spawn right where the spawner was, so, I mean, it was doing what I told it to. I mean, it's a logical error. It was doing exactly what I said it was, it's just not what I wanted it to do. The solution, however, was pretty simple, as the local variable for the vector 3 of the spawner is 0, 0, 0. All I had to do was add the other number, and it would be, 0 plus -2 would be -2. So it was just literally just an addition. But with that taken care of, the splatter spawner is basically done, which means every level I can just place those where I need them to be, and it'll spawn the splatters. One thing, though, after the fact that I don't like is that it spawns in a square, which makes sense. I gave it the ability to spawn in a square, but if it spawns a lot of them, it's a very noticeable square, and that's not... If you ever spill something on the ground, a liquid on the ground, it does not form a square. That's not how liquids work. The best solution would be to find a way to give it a weird shape, to mimic an actual liquid just kind of sprawling out on the ground. I'm not going to do that. I will probably go in and change this to at least spawn in a circular pattern, but as of right now, I have not done that. Another change I made, which I believe was off camera, was I did finally decide to just X the realistic movement of the robot vacuum. Honestly, the end result looks almost identical, but it feels better to move. I mean, the speed of the robot vacuum was so low that it really wasn't noticeable that it had an acceleration at all. But now it just feels better when you move it around. The turning, I believe, is still based on the rigid body like physics calculation, which I might change, but maybe not. I don't know. It's just that's something I'll just have to toy with and see if I can get it to a place where I like it. I mean, I don't need it to be like cartoony fast. I still kind of want a tiny amount of like speed realism. That's mostly for balancing purposes of like how the actual game's going to play, but I don't want it to be so slow that it's like, this sucks, right? Next, I went through and finally added a main menu and a pause menu. They are both functioning in the sense that they have buttons that when you click them, they do something. The pause menu will stop the game and any kind of like display information that's going on in the background. Like I added the battery life, which is just a percentage number and a counter for how many splats are left. Like it'll stop either of those from doing anything when it's paused. Currently, every button is functional except the options button, and the only reason that one doesn't work is because I don't have sound yet, so I can't. I mean, I could add like the sound bar, but it just won't do anything, so I thought I won't add that until I have sound so I can have immediate feedback to if it's working or not. But to that end, I also plan on implementing a resolution setting, which I could do, but I just haven't yet. I also might add achievements, not anything, crazy. It's just like, oh, did you get a good rank on this level or something like that. So there might be an achievements button added to the main menu too, but it's mostly done. At least in terms of programming. It still has, the basic Unity placeholder buttons and text and whatnot. But on the topic of things like resolution and the player's score in a level, I did go through and add player prefs. It's not, the best way to handle what I'm doing, but this is not a very large project, so I decided it's just okay to do it this way. But basically, when you complete a level, you will get a score determined on how many splats that you cleaned up, and then in the main menu, that score will show up on the level select screen, and it will persist through you closing and reopening the game. So with that, and in addition to actually being able to collect like the splats and it accurately count down how many are left, the core programming of the game is actually finished. There's always more to do. For example, like I said earlier, I don't have sounds. I'm going to need to program the sound to play, or when the character speaks I might add subtitles, which are going to have programming stuff. But like if I added more levels, which would just be copying and pasting the entirety of the first level and then adding more splats, more or less, the game's kind of done. Well, okay, it just now occurred to me that there's actually no way to pass a level. Like, I mean, you could collect all the splats, but there's no code in place for you to progress to the next level. I just manually have a button for testing that lets me do that. So scratch that. The game programming is like 98% finished, at least the core part of it. As you can see, though, the actual game as a whole is not done. Like I said, I'm missing sounds. And as you can see, there's no walls or a ceiling. Lots of missing models, that kind of thing. So the next thing I have to do is I really need to do the walls. I've got a weird hang-up about doing them because I want windows, but like, how am I gonna cut out the window? And it's not even a hard problem to answer. It's just one of those things where my brain is like, you got to do this in a specific way. Like, you already set the scale for the things in the universe. You got to figure out how it works. Like, I don't need to do that, but my brain is tricking itself into thinking that I need to, so I just need to stop and like make a window, put it in Unity, and build around it. That's kind of what I need to do. But in addition to the window, I want more models. I actually made some that aren't implemented yet. Actually, kind of a lot that aren't in there yet. But once I make them, just throw them in, then add colliders on them so you can't run into them. And with the addition of walls, I'm probably going to need to add a line of code for the camera that like doesn't let it clip through the wall somehow. The easy way out is to just change like the clipping plane on the camera itself, but I think that's going to result in some stuff that I don't want to happen, but I'll figure that out. I'll figure that out when I have the walls. But yeah, thank you everybody for listening to my little devlog. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed working on this project. I'm aware, I might have said this before, I'm aware that this game is less game and more like art project, but I'm still having a lot of fun. It's definitely, it's just kind of cool to like see things come together, And it's made me really excited for my next project, which will be a proper like full-on game, and I have to keep telling myself not to start working on that one until this one is, almost at the very least like 99% 100% completely finished, right? Like, I don't want to start second project and be like, oh, well, let's just do this one instead. I want to finish this first project and be like, it's done. I made that. It's out there. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you next time.